I was at a convention not too long ago, and this girl came running up to me, and she's like, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And I'm like, yeah. She goes, can I have your autograph? I'm like, well, sure, thank you. And I signed her thing, and I said, so what's some of your favorite stuff I've done? She's like, what? Well, what are some of your favorite characters that I voiced? She goes, I don't even know who you are. So just by a show of hands, and you're not going to offend me, who has no clue who I am? Oh. Now, either that means everybody in here knows who I am, or you all really just don't care enough to even raise your hand that you don't know who I am. And that's fine too. So some of the roles you might know me from, I play Hohenheim in Full Metal Alchemist. Thank you. Salvador in Borderlands 2 video game. I play Lord Death in a show called Soul Eater. I also play a character called Undertaker in Black Butler. Most recently, I'm very excited about this, and not many people have heard about it. I'm looking down, and there's like a blue beam coming at me. It's like... but I play a character named Kumatetsu in a movie called The Boy and the Beast. And if you haven't had a chance yet to see it, I highly recommend it. It was done by Mamoru Hosoda, who did Summer Wars. You familiar with Summer Wars? Or Ghost or Wolf Children? Anyway, this is his newest movie called The Boy and the Beast. And it's sort of like Jungle Book meets Karate Kid. So, you know. Yeah, woohoo! So anyway, it's a really good movie, really good movie. Anyway, I'm very excited to be here. This is my first time to actually stop in Sulphur. I've driven by it a lot. I went to college in Tennessee, so of course I drove I-10 quite a bit. But this is my first time to, oh good, the Marines have landed. Good to see you. Saving Private Ryan is here. So, but I'm very excited to be here. It's a lovely town and amazing food. In fact, as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to get more buffet over there. So I love to eat, obviously. And someone who's asking me is like, do you prefer voice acting or on camera? And I said, I really prefer voice acting because I can eat more and it doesn't matter. The microphone does not add any weight to you. So, but anyway, I'm thrilled to be here. This is such a great time. And I live very close. You know, I live in Houston, Texas, which is only about 2 hours away, 2.5 hours away, something like that. So anyway, this is a good time. So I'm going to just talk until I see a hand go up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's what I'm here to do. But I do love conventions, and I will share some stories with you because we were going to have a thing tonight, and it may have been moved. But I do a panel called Con Horror Stories. And if you've been to conventions, how many is this is your first convention? Just by a show of hands. Okay, good. How many have been to more than 5 conventions? Oh, good. Okay, so you know when you go to conventions, I mean, conventions to me are so awesome because it's a chance for me to meet people like you and for us to all hang out. You know, somebody was asking me like, so what's the state of anime today? What do you think the state of anime is? And I was like, you know, I'll tell you what the state of anime is. And I was at a convention in Toronto at the time. I said, I'm at a convention in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. There's 25,000 people here. This exact weekend, there's an anime convention going on in Boston, Massachusetts, which is not really that far from Ontario. There's 23,000 people down there. So between this, 300-mile difference, or whatever it is, there's over 50,000 people at anime conventions. I'd say it's doing pretty good, Conventions are amazing. When I started doing this, there was maybe 2 or 3 a month. Now there's 5, 6, 7 of them a week. So it really is amazing. But with all those numbers of conventions, you get a lot of funny things that end up happening to you. You know, I mean, and I've had all kinds of things. Some of them I can share with you now, but some of them, they're really more appropriate for 18 or over, so I won't share those. But if you see me later, I'll be happy to share them, or I may share them later tonight if we do that panel. But like one time, I was at a convention in, where was that? Up in, I think it was in Wisconsin. And I'm sitting there and I'm doing autographs, you know, and I'm signing. And I look, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this guy come walking in, and he's got this really beautiful handmade, you know, he built it himself, mech kind of costume, and it, you know, he cosplay, and it's shiny and plastic and everything, and he's like walking in, he's got a helmet on, so I can't tell who it is, you know, I just see this guy going, and he's walking in, and he walks right up to me, right up to my table, and he goes, "I don't care what anybody says, but I'm your #1 fan, and I'm about to go fanboy on you." What does that even mean? I don't know. I'm very afraid. Anyway, it turned out to be a nice guy, I just noticed here, too, it's hard to see. I've got the edge of the stage right here, man. That's kind of dangerous. I was at a convention in Ontario, you know, right? And they had opening ceremonies. This is a great, never start your convention like this, okay? I'm at opening ceremonies. Stage is about this high. And there's, you know, 1,000 people in the audience. And I'm just, you know, we're doing our whole introduction, you know, glad to be here, Ontario, let's have a great convention. And there are stairs right there to get off the stage. But do I decide to walk down the stairs to leave the stage? No. I think it'll be much more dramatic and fun if I leap off the stage. Kind of like a mosh pit without the mosh. So I jump off the stage, and I mean, I fly as far as that projector, and I land, I'm just like, and I went, well, that doesn't feel right. And I limp over to my seat, and I mean, people are going, dude, what did you do? I'm like going, I don't know. I broke my foot. So the entire convention, I'm in a wheelchair. I've just done stupid things at conventions. But I love them. I love to get out there and meet, like I said, meet people and have fun. And you know, it's a great time. So anybody have any questions for me or anything? Or, yeah, you have one right here. Steampunk. What's one of my favorite characters that I've ever voiced? What's your favorite character that I voiced? That's my favorite too. Salvador is a lot of fun. You know, we get that question a lot. You know, what's your favorite? Blah blah blah. You know, and it's a tough question because I like them all. You know, I always enjoy them. Salvador is fun because it's way out of my. You know, sometimes you go in and go, "What are you looking for?" And you're like, "I just need a voice just like you." You know, I'm like, okay. But Salvador, you know, he talks like this, and everything is like, I'm going to kill you. It's also very hard. You know, every time I drive up to Dallas and work for about 2 or 3 hours doing Salvador, I literally would like, they're like, okay, John, we're done for today. And I'm like, okay, thanks a lot. See y'all later. He has my favorite line that, again, I cannot say. Is there anybody under the age of 18 here? Yeah, one. Great. Way to ruin it for everybody. I'm kidding. Love you. If you could just do this for like just a minute. No, I'm not going to even do it because it's too funny. But see me later and I'll tell you. It's very, very funny. Yeah, conventions are... I remember one time I was at a convention, and this is the very first convention I ever did. It was in, uh-oh, my butt's barking. Hello? Hello? Hi. That's my wife, everybody. Now she's like going, ah! She jumped away from the phone. Hey, can I call? I don't want. Let me put her in front of a speaker so she can hear me. Hey, let me call you in a little bit. I'm in the middle of a panel right now. Is everything okay? Hey, are the kids there? Are the kids there? She's frozen. Oh, yeah. No, I'm not. I'm in the Holiday Inn. So, which is better than the doghouse. Trust me. I've got a permanent room at the doghouse. That'd be a great idea for a hotel. For men only. Welcome to the doghouse. Your room is ready. Your complimentary cocktail is right here. One time I was going to a convention, speaking of my wife and being in the doghouse. My wife loves that I do what I do, and she's very supportive and everything. But she knows nothing about anime. I mean, hold up your hand real quick. Just hold up this pinky right here. Half your pinky knows more about anime than my wife. Make sure she's not still on the... Yeah, okay. She's good. So, she knows nothing about anime, right? So, but when I get invited to a convention in Dublin, Ireland, suddenly she's a fan. No, I'd love to go to a convention with you in Dublin, Ireland. So anyway, we're on the plane. We're flying over to Dublin, Ireland, and we're sitting in the seat having a beverage and talking. And I said, look, I don't know how to say this, and I'm just going to say it. But in the world of anime, I'm kind of a big deal. And she was like, you're what? I said, I'm just saying, I'm kind of a big, that's why we're going to Ireland. I got invited to an anime convention because they like the voice work that I do, and that's why we're going, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, whatever. So we get to Dublin, Ireland, and we land, and we go through customs, and we come out with our luggage, and sure enough, there are people there, not many, but like 5 or 6, with signs. We love you, John Swasey. She's like, oh my God. For real? So anyway, later that day, a lot of times at a convention you get a handler or somebody that helps you, navigate the convention. And my handler was named Sinead. And she was talking, and she's like, oh, you're so lucky. My wife's like, what do you mean? She goes, well, you're married to John Swasey. She goes, so? She goes, well, I mean, you're married to him. You live with him. You get to hang out with him. You get to sleep with him. And my wife goes, yeah, he's no big deal. Which is why I no longer take my wife to anime conventions. So, anyway, yeah, I love conventions. I love the things that happen to them. Although sometimes they're weird things, like kind of scary things sometimes. Like one time we were at I was at this in Tampa, Florida, in MetroCon, my very first anime convention. And I'm there with Monica Rial, and Monica's she's like, John, I'll be your guide. I'll help you out. You just stick with me and everything will be groovy. You'll be just fine. And so I was like, okay. So are you going to turn off the blue beam of light? It's pierced a hole in my stomach already. Anyway, so we're sitting there, and we were doing a panel. And if you've been to a big convention that's in like a hotel or you're surrounded by hotels or whatever, you know what this is like, waiting for the elevators. And then when finally one shows up, it's full of people, and you're like going, well, I can't even get in there now. So anyway, so we're sitting there, we're doing a panel, and it's in a room this size. It's in the main ballroom. And we're sitting there, and there's like 5 of us. You know, all the voice actors are doing all this panel together. And we're sitting there, and we're like, where's Monica? Where is she? And so all of a sudden, the door opens in the back, and here comes Monica walking up. And she's walking up like this, just going. I'm like, Monica, honey, what's wrong? And she just grabs a microphone, and the room is, you know, filled. And she goes, I'm not saying it was anyone in here. But you know how you have to wait for the elevators? Well, I was on like the 8th floor of the hotel, and I didn't have time to wait for the elevator because I had a panel. And so I decided to take the stairs. So again, I'm not saying it was anyone in this room. But as I came down the staircase, about, say, the 5th floor, a pungent odor hit my nose. And I thought, what is that? Oh, gross. Oh, that is. And you know how stairwells in a hotel, they're like this, right? You know, you go down and you make a kind of a spiral, square spiral. And she came down the stairs and hit the landing of the next one. And she looked, and there's a human poo. She goes, again, I'm not saying it was any one of you. But if you ever want me to come back to your convention, please do not poo in the stairwell. Okay, who has a question? Okay, Monica, thank you. That was actually part of the story. But if you have a question, go ahead. As long as it's not about poo. I'm sorry, what? The voice of... Yes, sure. Yeah. You bet. Advice to give anyone who's aspiring to be a voice actor? Go become an electrical engineer. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm saying what I mean is voice acting, first of all, if it's something that's a passion or even a hobby, go for it, but go for it with everything you've got because it's a very competitive world and it's getting more and more competitive every day just because the proliferation of computers and microphones and software you can download. I mean, you can set up a studio at your house, you know. But if you wanted to become like, specifically in like anime or, okay. So one thing is, where do you live? Lake Charles. How much anime is being done in Lake Charles? So you need to go to a market, be it Houston, Dallas, Los Angeles, Vancouver. I think those are the big anime hubs, maybe New York. But you would need to be in that market because in anime, what we do is called ADR, which stands for Audio Dialogue Replacement. So ADR just means that there's already Japanese there. We're lifting the Japanese out and dropping in the English. So we're like, the character's already drawn, so there's lip flaps. So you have to match the lip flaps. In traditional, like what Taylor does with Star Wars, they're doing what's called prelay, where he's actually recording and then they're going and animating around what he says. So he's got a lot more freedom of line delivery than the actors doing the anime. But in that case, you need to be in a studio where the director can work with you. That's why you have to be in that market. But I would say first step is find an acting class. And I heard Aaron saying the same thing, you know, and it's like kind of that affirmation. But find an acting class in Lake Charles, whether it be a professional acting class or a college course or something, get some theater training, because all voice acting is voice acting. You're acting, you're just using your voice, only. You're only using this thing right here. So find an acting class and then, get some acting training. Then you would want to put together a demo of character voices. I'm doing a workshop tomorrow in here, I believe, at 3 o'clock called So You Want to Be a Voice Actor. And we're going to do some live auditions and that kind of thing. And we'll really dive in and explore how to do that. But eventually, you get your demo made, you'll want a website, and you start marketing yourself to the various people that make the decisions and, take it from there. And hopefully you land something. And it may be, you may walk into Funimation and they go, hey, man, we thought you were great. We're going to start you off doing some what's called walla, which is your crowd scenes. And they may bring you in with like 3 or 4 other people for an hour or two. And you just start, like in this scene, you're in the marketplace. And go. Hey, I want a fish. Anybody hungry? I don't know. I just get it, And you just start rambling on. And it just creates this cacophony of crowd noise. And then, but if they see or hear something they like from you, they may go, hey, you know what? I need you to can you be the farmer that's selling his stuff and you actually have lines? And then it just kind of grows from there. But it takes time, I was very fortunate and lucky, literally lucky. In 1996, a friend of mine, or a guy I met, wasn't even a friend of mine. He just said, hey, man, if you want to try this thing, I do voiceover. And I'm like, well, I do a lot of voiceover. And he goes, I do anime. And I'm like, in 1996, I'm like, what's anime? And he started telling me about it, and I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, and my wife is a director at this company in Houston that does anime. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, I'll give it a try. And so I went into the audition, and they're like, hi. And I go, hi, I'm John Swasey, and kind of a big deal. And they said, okay, so what we're going to do is, here are your lines. And they gave me a script, and you had a monitor where you could watch the animation. And they said, so we're going to play this scene, and when you hear the Japanese start talking, that's when you come in. I'm like, okay, sounds easy enough to me. So I went up, and I'm like, okay, and we're recording. Okay, cut. John, when you hear the Japanese, that's when you need to start talking. It's like, oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, here we go. Ready? And recording. Okay, John, you see can you see the monitor? Yeah, it's right here. Stuff happening all over it. Okay, do you hear things happening? It's like, yeah. Okay, when you hear the Japanese character come in, start talking. Okay. Oh, okay. I got it. Okay. And recording. Hey there. Come on, let's go now. Okay, thanks for coming in. You were great. We'll be in touch. And so I left, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was the worst audition I've ever had in my life, in anything. And I sat in my car for about 5 minutes, and I went back inside, and I said, look, I know you got other people coming in, but I would really love an opportunity to try this again. I would really like another chance if you don't mind. They said, fine, we got to get through these people. We'll put you at the very end. And I said, fine. So I sat there for like 45 minutes or an hour, however long it was. I went back in there, and they said, remember now, when you hear the chat, yeah, I got it now. And we're recording. Wow, look out. And I started reading the lines, but doing all these weird voices, and they were just like, whoa, great. Can you come in next week? And it was with this little bitty company called ADV that turned out to be within a couple of years, became the #1 producer of anime in North America, providing work for tons of voice actors in Houston. I mean, really kind of spawned the whole industry. And then Funimation came along, so I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I mean, I would have never dreamed Houston, Texas was going to be the right place. That's just one of those things. So anyway, I really lucked out. Anybody else have a question? Yes, ma'am. I get to spend a day with 3 of the characters that I voice act. What do I do for the entire day? Figure out how in the hell I was able to spend time with some animated characters, number one. Well, it depends who I was with. I mean, 3 of my favorites. Okay, well, I mean, Salvador, definitely go to a gun range. Who else? I tell you who I wouldn't be with is, you know My Bride is a Mermaid? Gosaburo. Does anybody know Gosaburo from My Bride is a Mermaid? That was the most brutal character I ever did because everything he does is like this. And I just thinking, how annoying would that be to be around that person all day long? What would you like to drink? I know. Awesome. So we'd go to the gun range and we'd I don't know, maybe who else would it be? We'd name me 3 characters because it's hard for me to pick 3 of my favorites because I really love them all. And the other thing too is I play a lot of bad people, a lot of villainous people. Lord Death. I'd spend the day trying to rip off that mask is what I do. What's underneath there? Reap a chop. And I'm dead, So, Undertaker, we'd probably go to a bar. I'd be trying to rip off his hat, pull his hair away. One time I was at a convention, and I don't know what made me think of this, because it's not, Vic has nothing to do with it. But, Scott McNeil? Y'all know who Scott McNeil is? Scott... Was that a burp or just... Yes, I know who Scott is. Do you know Scott McNeil? But Scott McNeil is a Canadian voice actor. Very, very talented voice actor. Done a ton of stuff. Super nice guy. And he played the original Hohenheim in Full Metal Alchemist. And then I took over the role because he had I think it was a work visa problem. He couldn't come back into the States to work, so I ended up getting the role. But we were at a convention in Columbus, Ohio, a few years ago, and we're sitting at a table. It's a big panel, stage like this, and he leans over. He plays Hohenheim, who's Edward's father, played by Vic Mignogna, and Scott leans over and he goes, I play Hohenheim, and you play Hohenheim. That makes Vic's our son. Why'd you have to say that? No, Vic was not there. Vic was not there. And I love Vic. Vic is a super talented guy. I love working with him. We've got a movie coming out called The Perfect Con, Khan, Perfect Con. Hopefully it'll be out sometime this year, knock on wood. But it's a CG movie. It's not anime, but he plays a villain in the movie, and then he did such a brilliant job. He's just such a talented individual, and so much fun to work with. So I love that guy. Any other questions? Anybody from the back over there? I'll get you just a sec. Anybody in the back corner, kind of representing that whole section over there? fun stories with and about other. I got a story for you. So a lot of times people go, hey, what's it like working with other voice actors? You know, we don't ever get a chance to work together because we're always in the booth singly. There's always just one of us, you know, so we never work together. So the only time we ever get to hang out is at conventions, really. It's kind of one of the reasons we all like to do conventions, because we all get to hang out and everything. And one time we were on stage doing a panel, and we were swapping war stories, you know, kind of like I was telling you about, I'm going to go fanboy on you, or don't poo in the stairway, that kind of thing. And Eric Vale was telling a story. This was one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. But he said he was like sitting there, and he was back in his hotel room and, you know, kind of mellowing out, chilling out after a long day, or maybe it was the beginning of the day, I don't know. And he decides, you know what, I got to go to the bathroom. So he opens the door to his bathroom, he walks in, turns around, sits down. Oh, yeah, what a day, what a day. Just kind of sitting there doing his business. All of a sudden he hears the door lock going. Like, the heck? Door opens. He's like, and he's in a very compromised position right now. You know, he's not like, let me spring up. He's like, what is going on? And the way the door was, he couldn't reach the door to shut it. And here comes the maid. Just sitting there. What's up? Oh, man. Craziest thing a fan ever did to me, this is true. I was in Scottsdale, Arizona at a convention. In fact, we were having a big Evangelion reunion. Tiffany Grant was there. Spike Spencer was there. Matt Greenfield, one of the founders of ADV and director and writer of Evangelion in the early days, he was there, and sitting there and had a big panel and everything. And this girl goes, I have a question. And she goes, this is for John Swasey. Could you come down here, please? So I walk down the stage, and I go, yes, what can I do for you? And she goes, would you lick my hand? What? All right. She was like, ah! Oh, I was kidding. Well, you know, never, ever make a joke like that with a deranged person like me. You never know what might happen. So, anyway, you had a question down here? Okay, good. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts? Or yeah, yes, ma'am. Have I ever done a character that I was tired of playing and I didn't want to do anymore? That's an interesting question. No. And mainly because, you know, it's work. You know, you don't want to do it. Now, like, there are characters that you're like, oh, this is going to kill me. You know, like Gosaburo. I mean, when I recorded My Bride as a Mermaid, we would literally go in, we would record for about 15 minutes and take a 45-minute break. I mean, it was just because, like I said, everything was at the top of his lungs. Or Crocodile from One Piece. He's another very tough one. He's not as bad now, mainly because he doesn't appear as much. And even when he does, he's not yelling. But in the stretch of like a year, and are you familiar with the show One Piece? So there's like 8 billion episodes. And in somewhere in like 200s or whatever, Crocodile just makes this massive appearance. And I mean, it was just like hours upon hours of just going, Luffy! You know, and you're just like, Gah! You know. So it's not that I got tired of playing them. It was just they were just very hard on the voice, you know. What's that? Yeah. So anyway, I mean, you can already hear, but just today, just from talking, my voice is already giving way. But no, I love doing all the characters. They're all a lot of fun. The characters that are the most fun, though, are the ones where he's, all right, I'm going to talk like this. Because you can do that all day long. So, oh, yeah, Jesse. So, did anybody see Lake Texarkana last night that we did? Did you like it? So, for those of you who don't know what it is, what we did was when I was at ADV, in addition to doing anime, we also would dub Japanese live-action movies. And we got the rights to the Gamera series. Gamera, if you don't know who Gamera is a giant turtle kind of in the pantheon of Japanese monsters like Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan. Gamera is a big turtle. And, it's the kind of animal that destroys the city in order to save it, It's like, and so we dubbed it, and we did Gamera 1, and then we did Gamera 2. And on Gamera 2, the director, Kyle Jones, thought it would be really, really funny to do the entire movie as a bunch of Texas rednecks, which we did. And the Japanese loved it. They thought it was brilliant. They thought it was hilarious, And so it was released on the DVD as an extra. And anyway, and we thought, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be so much fun. There's so many movies like this we could do. And frankly, we felt there was a real market for it. But we're just stupid voice actors. We didn't know. And, the powers that be didn't. So they never exploited that or explored it to see. But I'm like, God, man, you guys missed a boat. So we have done a couple of movies like that with Matt Greenfield. There's a series of movies about a female truck driver in Japan, and we redubbed those as a bunch of rednecks. But they're first of all, they're 18 or over, because there's content-wise and language-wise, it's some gratuity in there that's not appropriate. In fact, there's a whole scene with a truck driver and this prostitute. And it's like a sex scene. I mean, in an R-rated movie, it's not porn, but there's stuff shown, and, you're like, oh, God, really? And so we were trying to make that funny. We're like, hey. And anyway, so I was doing a convention in Florida in Daytona, and it was a small convention. And I said, hey, man, I've got this movie I want to show. I want to do a screening of this movie. And it was called Big Bad Mama-san was the name of it. That's what we renamed it. And it was this, and it was this silly movie that we took, and it's about truck drivers in Japan, but we turned them into redneck truck drivers and, all this stuff. And it's a very funny movie. In fact, there's one of my favorite lines, spoiler alert, but in case you ever see it, but this prostitute is one of the main characters, and she's trying to turn her life around, and she befriends this female truck driver and her boyfriend, and the three of them kind of go through, it's their journey. That's the movie. But at the end of the movie, it turns out the prostitute has, you get this through the movie, she's got a problem, like a physical ailment. And at the end of the movie, she's in the hospital, and the doctor's having a word with the female truck driver and the friend, and he's trying to tell them about their friend, the prostitute, and it's like, I'm sorry to tell you, your friend is in very bad shape. She has a very rare form of cancer, mainly found in hookers. In fact, it's called hooker cancer. Never thought I'd ever make cancer funny, but anyway. Anyway, so in this movie, there's a scene kind of in, 15 minutes into the movie. And it's this in the back of the truck, and they're getting it on and doing all, and you're just like, oh, God, really? Come on. So I'm very excited. I'm like, hey, man, I got this movie I want to screen. And they're like, yeah, that'd be fine. And I'm like, listen, man, but it's got to be at night, okay? Because it's R-rated, so it needs to be at night. They're like, okay, we'll do it at 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, that'd be fine. 9 o'clock is great. So throughout the day, people are coming up to me going, hey, man, listen, we found out we got something else going on at 9 o'clock in that room. We need you at, can we do it and I need a 2-hour window. They're like, can we do it at 7? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm here to accommodate whatever you need to do. 7 o'clock is fine. Like, okay. And then later on in the day, they come in, they go, oh, dude, we made a mistake. There's another thing in that room at 7. They need the room. Can we do it at 5? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. That's fine. Well, I completely forgot. So at 5 o'clock, it's the screening of this movie. Room fills up. It's about this many people. And I'm telling about how we started, we redid it, and it's all this funny stuff, and it's a comedy. Wasn't intended to be a comedy, but we turned it into one, right? So we start showing the movie. And people are laughing, and it's funny, and people are laughing. All of a sudden, this scene comes on, and as it comes on, I'm like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot about this scene. Oh, this is kind of embarrassing. I wish this weren't even in the movie. But all of a sudden, they're just doing this sex thing, and I'm just like, oh God, this is killing me. And all of a sudden, I hear from somewhere in the crowd, there are kids in the audience. I was like, oh my God! And it was on a projector, and I ran in front of the projector to get it off the screen. I'm like, please stop! And now it's showing right here on my stomach. I'm like going, And I stopped the movie, and all I can say is, thank goodness the owner of the convention happened to be sitting there at the very beginning of the movie. And he's like, man, I'm so glad I could make it. I didn't think I could. And I mean, 2 minutes before that scene came on, somebody comes in and goes, hey, listen, man, they need you in con ops. He's like, oh, great. So he left. Thank God. He came back in, and he's like, where's the movie? And I'm like, yeah, it didn't work out. So, anyway. But anyway, to answer your question, Jesse, yes, I don't know. I would love to do more movies like that. I think it'd be a lot of fun. If we could find them, that'd be great. So, yeah, we'll get you, then you. Are there any particular roles that I wish I'd gotten? All of them. Yeah, all of them. Yeah. Audio bomb? Oh, absolutely. Not one of them I can share with you here, but of course. The question was, do you have any good audio bomb stories? And basically that is, what we do is, when we're in the booth, we're like, we're doing a scene, and it's, could be between two different characters, but remember, we're just recording one at a time. So I'm like, oh, Lucy Christian's going to be coming in next week to record this character. I'm going to say my line, but then let's leave her a little nugget. Let's record something inappropriate that because when she comes in, she gets to hear what's already been recorded, and then, she's going to hear this line, and, everyone has a good laugh and everything, but they're always inappropriate, so I can't really share it with you now. But I will say, one of the funny things about, and I've done this, as is other actors have done this too, is when you're sitting there and you're like recording a line, and it may have, like it's a little paragraph, it's not just, come on. It's like, now listen, here's the plan. We've got to get together. We've got to make sure everyone in that room understands this is a very serious situation. We've got to get them out of there. Do you understand me? Something like that. And you'll be recording it, and you're like going, all right, now listen to me. We've got to make sure that everyone in that because you screwed up the line. And then they'll actually play it, and it fits. And it's just always very funny to go, why don't you just leave it? It's perfect like that. So, anyway, anybody else have a question? How are we doing on time? What time is it? Oh, okay, we got a good time. Yeah. Wow. You know what? No, I haven't. So the question, if you couldn't hear in the back, has any of the roles I've ever done in any of the shows I've ever worked on, have I ever got a chance to meet the original creators of that show? And no, I haven't. But man, would that be an honor? I would love that. And especially right now, because it's very near and dear to me, I would love to meet Mamoru Hosoda, who did Boy and the Beast and Summer Wars and Wolf Children, right? Because for those of you who don't know, so Miyazaki, we all know who Miyazaki is. Spielberg of Japan. So Hosoda would be Francis Ford Coppola or George Lucas. You know, I mean, he's right there. They're right up in there. And one of the greatest achievements for me personally as an actor was we all had to audition. And I did quite a bit of research on this character. And I did it because I got an email first of all, if you're not friends with me on Facebook, friend me. I love to be friends with people. And you can find me on Twitter at SwapMonster. But I got a message from a fan who said, hey, you know, I just saw that Funimation got the rights to Boy and the Beast, and you'd be perfect as the Beast. I was like, well, that's very considerate of you. I don't think they really care. You know, that's not how it works. They don't go, oh, a fan said John should be that character. Yeah, let's make it, you know. So, but I contacted Mike McFarland, who's one of the producers up in Funimation, and I asked him about it. And he goes, yeah, we're not doing anything yet, but when we have auditions, we'll let you know. So I started doing some research on the character and on Mamoru Hosoda, and, you know, I'd worked on Summer Wars, so I was, you know, felt I was somewhat familiar with it. Anyway, when the audition came, I auditioned and really spent a lot of time, was very deliberate in my efforts and everything. Anyway, lo and behold, I got it. And I was like, wow, this is great. Well, come to find out, I think this is correct. My understanding is that Mamoru Hosoda selected all the voice actors for the English. So that means that he heard mine and went, that's the guy. So I would love to meet him, you know, and say thank you. You know, what an honor. You know, that's one of the things to me that's important about, and it's very important about anime, is that in the English. Because there's a lot of people that, you know, I had a guy come up to my table. I was doing autographs, and he's like, wow, you play that, you play that, you play that? Man, I love those shows. I'm like, well, thank you. Thank you. He goes, well, I don't love you. I watch them in Japanese. I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. Good for you, man. That's great. Well, I'm glad you like them anyway. Because, you know, there's that, and it's not so much now, but there used to be that camp of people that are like, well, if you don't watch anime in Japanese and subtitles, dude, you're fake. Like, oh, come on, dude, really? I mean, if you're going to say that, then I would say, if you don't speak Japanese, you're fake, you know, because you're using subtitles. So the English voice actors go in, and we dub this in, right? But I think by doing that, that has opened this up to a vast number of people that may not have gotten into it otherwise. And I'm not saying that because I think we're special or anything like that, but I just think it is what it is. But I do think this, and I believe this with all my heart, that, because people ask me, like, so what was your motivation, or what were you thinking about when you did this voice for that character? And I'm like, well, I'll tell you exactly what I was thinking. I did what the director told me to do, but B, I listened to what the Japanese actor did. Because he, in my case, he's the one who created this role, not me. And it would be a disservice to him and to the film and to the director and the producers if I went in there and said, I don't care what you did, I'm going to do it my way. So an example of that would be when I did Lord Death in Soul Eater. I was working on Crocodile, hours upon hours of Crocodile, and Crocodile was like this, everything, you know, and I had done a lot of characters, that had that kind of deep, gravelly voice. And I got a message, hey, when John's done, can you send him over to Studio C? We've got an audition we want him to do. So I walked over there, and I walked in. Zach Bolton was the director, and I was like, okay, man, so what are we doing? He goes, well, it's a show called Soul Leader, and I'd like you to read the role of Lord Death. I didn't know anything about the show, didn't know anything about the character, but what I did know is Lord Death, what's he going to sound like? What would you think Lord Death would sound like? I'm Lord Death, Here we go again, So I started reading the character, and I'm like, now come with me, whatever the line was, and I'm doing it. He's like, oh, hang on. Let's listen to the Japanese voice actor. And so I listened to the Japanese voice actor, and it was this high-pitched, and I was like, oh, you mean something more like this? And he was like, yes, try that. So I did that, and then I ended up, of course, getting the part, but it was because I really listened to what the Japanese actor did. And I thought I just think, to me, that's a very important component to do so. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but that's all I got. So. Yeah, so I met a few people. I mean, people from Gearbox were there. Anthony, the writer of it, I can't remember his last name. What is it? Yeah, Birch. His sister is Tina. Yeah. He's no longer there. But, yeah, I met him and met a couple people from Gearbox. That was such a fun show. And that, in video games, you are prelay. So you get to say a lot of lines and stuff like that. And like I said, my favorite line of all time is from that show. That it ended up getting cut out of the game. But it was one of the best lines ever. So anyway, I know there's another panel coming in. We got time for maybe one more question? Or not? Anybody? Yeah. Jessica, right? Erica. That's close. It's an Uka name. Erica, yeah. It's all right. When I get into the role of the villain, how does that feel? Well, it like I said, it's I don't know. I mean, I'm not really thinking I'm this evil person. I don't really get into it that deep or anything. Like somebody was asking me, like, so when you play a lot of fathers, Hohenheim is a father, and Gendo is a father, and it's like, how much of your real fathering does that come into play? And I'm like, well, not much, Son, go get in that mech. So really for villains, it's something that I do, and they're not generally terribly bad. I mean, in the real world, I don't know. It's a interesting question. I've never really thought about it. I just kind of go up there and do it, listen to what the director tells me to do, and then do it. So, sorry, it's kind of a lame-o answer, I know. So, all right. Anybody else? Yeah. We got one, and then we'll get you, then we'll call it a day. Did not. I have not. I am not a gamer. I mean, I play chess. I play Pong. Boop. Boop, 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 boop. That's about the level I can take right there. Boop, boop, boop. That's it. I'm done. But I was at a convention one time, this same one in Wisconsin, and they were like, hey, one of the panels we want to do is sort of like a Mystery Science Theater 3000, where we want you to be Salvador, and we're going to have two guys play the game, and we want you to comment on it as Salvador. It's like, okay. And I got there, I'd never seen the game. So I'm watching it, and they had it on a, like this, a big screen like this. So the two guys are playing, they're like, okay. I'm like going, welcome to Borderlands 2, the game. I'm Salvador, your host, and we will now play. Play! And they start playing the game, and I'd never seen it. I'm just going. All of a sudden, it's like, what? Say something. Oh, yes! Video game! Yeah, you had a question back over on the side? Okay, yeah, last one. How many times have I been called Patrick Swasey? Well, are you familiar with the sketch on Saturday Night Live with Chris Farley and Patrick Swasey? I've been called Chris Farley more than I have Patrick Swasey. No, funny story though, this is true. We're both from Houston, and our mothers are both named Patsy. So I'm no relation to that side of the Swasey family, to my knowledge. Although in college, I was able to secure a lot of dates by promising that I could introduce them to Patrick Swasey. So anyway, but thank you all so much. Give yourselves a big hand.